Have you ever felt like you were meant for something more? Something magical? Let me tell you a story about a kind and beautiful girl named Cinderella. Her life wasn't easy. After her father passed away, she was left with her cruel stepmother and two selfish stepsisters. They were terribly jealous of her gentle nature and charm, so they forced her to become a servant in her own home. From sunrise to sunset, Cinderella cooked, cleaned, and scrubbed, while her stepsisters did nothing but complain and demand more. Her only friends were the little mice who lived in the attic and the birds in the garden. Despite her hardships, Cinderella always remained hopeful and kind, dreaming of a better life. One day, a royal proclamation arrived at every house in the kingdom. The king was throwing a magnificent ball so that his son, the prince, could find a bride. Every eligible maiden in the land was invited. Cinderella's stepsisters were ecstatic. They spent weeks preparing, ordering the most expensive dresses, and practicing their curtsies. Cinderella, of course, was expected to help them get ready, sewing their gowns and styling their hair. When she timidly asked if she could go to the ball too, her stepmother and stepsisters just laughed cruelly. They told her she was too dirty and dressed in rags to ever appear at a royal palace. Heartbroken, Cinderella watched them leave for the ball. Her dreams completely shattered. She ran out to the garden, tears streaming down her face. It felt like all hope was lost, but just as she began to despair, a soft, shimmering light appeared beside her. It was her fairy godmother, with a warm smile. She told Cinderella not to cry, because she was going to the ball after all. With a wave of her magic wand, the real magic began. A pumpkin in the garden patch swelled and transformed into a magnificent, gleaming carriage. The little mice who were her friends suddenly grew into 4 majestic white horses to pull it. A scruffy horse became a coachman, and a friendly dog turned into a footman. But what about a dress? The fairy godmother waved her wand again, and Cinderella's tattered rags dissolved into a breathtaking ball gown, sparkling like 1,000 stars. On her feet appeared the most delicate pair of glass slippers imaginable. Cinderella couldn't believe her eyes. She was ready for the ball. But her fairy godmother had one serious warning. The magic would only last until midnight. When the clock struck 12, everything would turn back to what it was before. Cinderella promised to remember, thanked her godmother profusely, and set off for the palace in her magical carriage. When Cinderella arrived at the ball, everyone was captivated. No one recognized the dusty servant girl. They only saw a mysterious, stunningly beautiful princess. The prince himself was instantly smitten. He walked right past all the other ladies, including the fuming stepsisters, and asked only Cinderella to dance. They danced the entire night, falling deeply in love as they twirled across the ballroom floor. Cinderella was so happy, she completely lost track of time. Suddenly, she heard the distant chime of the clock tower. Bong! Bong! It was striking midnight. Remembering her fairy godmother's warning, she gasped and pulled away from the prince. "I have to go!" she cried, rushing out of the ballroom and down the grand palace steps. In her haste, one of her delicate glass slippers slipped off her foot. She didn't have time to go back for it. She jumped into her carriage just as the final chime of midnight rang out. Instantly, the carriage turned back into a pumpkin, the horses into mice, and her beautiful gown into rags. The only thing left from the magical night was the single glass slipper she still wore. The prince was devastated. The love of his life had vanished, leaving only a single glass slipper behind. He was determined to find her. The next day, he issued a decree. He would marry the maiden whose foot fit the tiny glass slipper. The Grand Duke traveled all over the kingdom, from house to house, having every woman try it on. Of course, Cinderella's stepsisters were desperate to make it fit, trying to squeeze and shove their feet into the delicate shoe. But it was no use. Just as the Duke was about to leave, he spotted Cinderella quietly sitting by the hearth. Her stepmother tried to send her away, but the prince had ordered that every maiden must try. The Duke knelt and slid the glass slipper onto Cinderella's foot. It was a perfect fit! Then, for good measure, Cinderella pulled the other matching slipper from her pocket. Her stepmother and stepsisters were stunned into silence. At that moment, the prince, who had secretly followed the Duke, entered the room and recognized his true love. Cinderella and the prince were married in a grand celebration, and they lived happily ever after, proving that kindness and courage can truly lead to a magical life. Thanks so much for watching our story today. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you soon.